You do, don't you? What about you, Jack? You want it? Sure. Oh. All right, I'm going to throw it. You ready? There we go. There's good kids. All right. Hello, everybody. We're back here up the trail. It's December now, and got some things I want to share with you. Some pretty cool things, a little on the strange side. So I suppose you should prepare yourself for some woo. It's coming up. So anyway, one of the things I want to start off with here is a couple of days ago, we came up the trail just going for a walk, and this is a spot in the trail where I always stop, and you know, it gets backed up here and makes a mud hole, so I usually go over here and clear it out. And a lot of times when I'm right here, you know, I'll hear something, or the dogs will react to something, or you just never know. This is an interesting spot right here. So when I was here the other day, I cleared the drain here, got the water running, and I stood here and I watched and I listened, and I was kind of reminiscing about the giant X structure that used to be just right here beside the trail, and it collapsed a couple of years ago. And you know, I really loved looking at that structure every time I went by, and there's been a few times here that I've stopped and said, you know, I really miss that. It'd be so cool if we had another one. And I know if you follow this little spring up onto the hill, there's a huge giant X up in there. But you know, you can't see it from the trail. You got to climb up there to see it. So the other day when the dogs and I were here, that's what I was doing. I was just standing here and talking to myself, to them, whoever may be listening, about, you know, sure would be nice to have that another big X structure here. So the next day we come back out for another walk, and we get to here, and I turn around and look at that right there, big X structure right over the trail. Thank you so much. Isn't that wonderful? So yeah, there was no breeze. As you can see, the skies are blue. It's been lovely weather, you know, a little chilly, but you know, not bad for December. No storms, no wind, nothing to knock that tree down overnight. As you can see, there's a little bit of a trail that kind of goes through here, and I've come over and looked already. I haven't seen any real good signs of plants or anything in here. You know, there's the disrupted ground from the roots that were snapped when it fell. But didn't that just create the most beautiful X right over the trail? Thank you! What's up there, Jack? He seems to be on the path of something over there. I don't know if this is going to pick him up. Jack, come back! He's looking up on the hill up there. I don't know what he's looking at, but here he comes. He's still looking up there on the hill. What? I don't see nothing. Doesn't mean he don't see nothing or senses something. Which when we get into what we're going to talk about, it's going to fit right in. What was it, Jack? Huh? What was up there? All right, so what we're going to talk about. If you remember, about a year ago, just about exactly a year ago, we had our first fresh snow. It was 7-8 inches deep and sparkling and fluffy and beautiful, and the skies cleared up and it got crispy cold, and I came up here with the dogs just to take it all in. Just, you know, those first few days of the new snow is so beautiful. So that day I came up the trail with the dogs, and I was just right down here, and I don't know, you probably remember this, I was just kind of panning the camera, taking in how pretty it was, when all of a sudden I heard this very strange sound. It wasn't very loud, but I felt it more than I heard it. It went right up my spine, this very distinct vibration, and I was actually very surprised that it picked up on camera because, well, like I said, it was something that I felt more than I heard it. So that was right about this spot. That would have been right about a year ago. And then, you know, it was the June camp out. We were here in Greenwater, and most of the campers had gone for a night walk, and a few of us had stayed back at the fire. Well, while I was sitting there, I saw a black shadow move in front of my car, which was just a few feet away. And I stood up and I said, "Hello, somebody there?" We all stood up, looked, thinking maybe, you know, there was one of the campers who'd come back and was on their way to the potty tent. He's up there looking again. Huh, I wonder if there's somebody coming. Hearing voices. Oh, there he comes. He does seem a little nervous about what's out here today, doesn't he? You're a happy guy. All right, so what we were talking about. At the Greenwater campout, saw the black shadow move, stood up, asked who was there, sat back down, and the whole side of my chair vibrated with much intensity. It was quite shocking, quite surprising. I popped right back up out of that chair. I was, to say the least, startled. So that was what happened in June. And then at our September camp out, we had 3 of our campers were vibrated in their beds. 2 of them were okay with it. One person, Christina, she was a little upset, but she has since come to terms with it. She's okay. She's, you know, back out there again and doing fine. So that was in September. So back in October, we went to Northern California for the 50th anniversary of the Patterson-Gimlin footage. It was amazing. We made a couple of trips down to the Patterson-Gimlin film site. We got to walk right where Patty walked, and we had a great tour of the place. We had a birthday party for Bob Gimlin. We had a blast. So what happened down there? The first night I was there, I had driven for 12 hours to get there. It was a very, very long drive. Sandy had rented us a beautiful house to stay in, and I wanted to camp outside, but unfortunately the house was perched right on the side of a cliff over a river, so there really wasn't any yard. But there was a nice big deck. So I went out with my cot, my sleeping bag, set up on the deck to sleep out there. I was by myself. There was nobody else out there. I started hearing a lot of sticks breaking, some crunching in the leaves. At one point, something hit the hot tub that was across the deck from me pretty hard. And that was pretty interesting. But what I'm getting to here is after I had gone to sleep, I woke up to my entire lower half of my body vibrating. A very constant, very steady vibration. It wasn't really powerful, but it was very distinctly there. And it continued for while I was awake long enough for me to think, well, this is strange. Am I being vibrated, or is this just because I drove 12 hours today? And then it went, and it petered out and it stopped. And I went back to sleep. So that was one of the interesting things that happened to me on my first night in California. So, you know, we were there for a week. We had fun. Nothing else of particular interest happened to me. Oh, where'd he go? Jack! Where's he at, Gabby? Jack! There he comes. What are you doing? What are you doing up there, Jack? Okay. So anyway, on my way back from California, I knew that there was a really strong storm coming into Washington that night, and my goal was to get north of Portland before dark. So I was up and left early, drove all day. I only made a couple of stops, just once for a potty break and once for gas. And, well, being in Oregon, you don't even have to get out of the car. They pump it for you. So I was about 40 miles from Portland, and the strangest thing happened. I'm driving along, and something, let me demonstrate here. There's the side of my leg. Something jabbed the side of my leg like this, right there, several times. And it was quite startling, and I was like, what's going on here? And about that time, something tickled me right in the middle of my forehead. And I thought, okay, well, I think it's time to pull over and get some coffee, which I did, which I'm really glad I did, because it really gave me the pickup and the boost that I needed to make it home. And I did. I got home safe and sound. So then the next strange thing that happened was quite interesting. The next day, I'm at the house with the dogs and the cats and my husband. We're sitting on the couch watching a movie, and this is the middle of the afternoon, and something smacked the side of the house. And of course, I pretty much knew what it was. And Gabby, I think, knew what it was. She wasn't very concerned. She just kind of lifted her head, looked around, and went, eh. Jack, on the other hand, was a little bit upset. He went from window to window to window trying to figure out what it was. My husband, he's like, what the bleepity bleep was that? And I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't going to tell him what I was thinking it was. Well, because, he's just really not into the Bigfoot thing. I don't think he'd understand. So that was Sunday, the day after I got back from California. So about a week and a half went by. I had a dentist appointment late in the afternoon down in town, and I was on my way back up the hill, and the strangest thing happened in the car. I'm driving along, coming up the highway. It's well into dusk, not completely dark yet. I can still see, but it's getting there. There's a long straightaway between Mud Mountain Dam and the Scatter Creek. Well, I'm driving along, there's nobody else on the highway, and all of a sudden, my entire car fills up with this brilliant white light. I'm completely blinded. My first reaction is, and I am sorry to say this, I did some cussing. It was my response to believing that there was a really big truck had just come right up on my bumper and hit the high beams. And I may have called this person that I thought was there a few names. And then the light went off, and I could clearly see that there was nobody behind me. There was no other vehicle all the way back as far as I could see on the highway. The only other cars that I could see were just coming around the bend up in the distance ahead of me. So I immediately felt very bad for the cussing and swearing that I had done toward this person I thought was there, once I realized there was nobody there. And it kind of reminds me of a story that an ex-boyfriend had told me about back in the late 70s. He had been a rookie cop in Buckley, and one night, he said it was about 2 a.m, he was coming up the highway, and blinding white lights came through his rear window, blinding him in the mirror. And he was a little shocked that somebody would do this to a police officer. So he said what really threw him was when the lights went off, they didn't just turn off or turn away. They went up. They lifted up and were gone. So that's something that I remembered he told me, and that's what it reminded me of. And I'd also like to point out that that location where that happened to him was only just a few miles from the events that took place in the book Valley of the Skookum. If you haven't read that book, I would highly recommend it. So anyway, that was a couple of weeks ago. So next, not done with the weird stuff yet here. I got a few more things to tell you about. So next, this last week, I had the worst head cold. I was so sick. I got sick on Thanksgiving night, and I just went to bed and slept for a couple days. It was just horrible, horrible cold. Monday, I didn't go to work. I stayed home. I had dozed off watching TV, and I'm laying there, and I wake up, and I realize that from my hips to my neck, I am vibrating quite intensely, not as intensely as my butt was back in June, but still very intensely. And I'm laying there, I'm awake, and I'm feeling this, and I'm thinking, it's happening again. And I'm thinking, I can see how somebody could mistake this for an earthquake, except for it wasn't in my arms and legs. It was just my torso that was vibrating. And then it went and stopped. So that's how long I was awake that this was happening, that I could actually think about what was happening, and it stopped. So what startled me, that didn't startle me. What startled me was I opened my eyes after it had stopped, and there's Gabby standing there beside the bed just looking at me. And it's like, oh, I got to tell you, I'd never wake up to that. She didn't want anything. She wasn't whimpering. She looked pretty sleepy. She just looked at me for a minute. We looked at each other, and then she went back into the bed and went back to sleep. So I really don't know what that was about, other than it was a little startling to just open my eyes and see her just standing there looking at me. So that was pretty strange. Okay, so that would have been Monday night that I was in my bed and felt the vibration. On Tuesday I went to work. I only work 2 days a week. I didn't want to miss both of them, so I took the dogs and cat up to the house and I went to work. Well, I really wasn't well enough. The boss finished up what he needed to do and sent me home. So that night I'm driving down the highway, headed back to the cabin. I got Gabby and I got the cat in the car in her carrier, and I'm thinking to myself, I really need to make a video and document some of this stuff. It's just, getting to be too weird. Gotta document and share. So I'm driving down the highway. I'm just coming into Greenwater, and I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to title it? And I'm thinking, knee deep in woo. And somebody whistled in the car, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't Gabby, and I don't think it was the cat either. So that was weird. Did that pick up? Was somebody over there? I just heard the little girl's voice over there. How strange. Okay. Okay, so yeah, the whistle. That whistle happened as I'm driving into Greenwater, and it wasn't me, it wasn't the dog, and I don't think it was the cat. It was pretty darn strange. I'm thinking hard, trying to figure out this whistle when I pull into the driveway at the cabin, and in my pocket I hear Siri's voice go, "I'm sorry, Barbara, I'm having trouble making a connection right now. Do you mind if we try this again later?" And I'm like, sure, okay. But I have since debunked the Siri in my pocket thing. I'm pretty sure that was the phone was up against the seatbelt buckle, and that was what pushed the button and activated the phone. But that doesn't explain any of the rest of these things that have happened. There could be totally logical explanations for all of it. I'm not going to speculate on that. I'm going to let you decide for yourself. I will say that the night that my chest was vibrated, I was still, pretty sick with my cold, and my cold never did move into my throat or my lungs. It stayed a head cold, as bad as nasty as it was. Most colds generally migrate into my lungs, and it didn't happen this time. I had no cough. I had perfectly clear lungs, so don't know that it was actually connected to that or not, but that's what happened. So then the next thing is come out, ask for a new ex, and there it is. Isn't that beautiful? Perfect ex right there. Icing on the cake, wouldn't you say? So anyway, that catches you up with things, and just gonna keep going, and maybe some more cool stuff will happen. I'm not really sure what it's all about, but we're gonna keep at it, and I would expect there's gonna be some more strange things. It's safe to say we're now knee deep in woo, and we're gonna have some fun. Yeah, cool. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day. That was weird. That was weird. you.